Hey guys, I'm here to get into Martin Scorsese's Silence. This came out in the year 2016, and this is increasingly just revealing to be perhaps tied with Taxi Driver is my favorite Martin Scorsese film. I know Taxi Driver might be a little more original and groundbreaking, but I've just spent so much time with that film. This film is honestly just a lot more refreshing to me and just more resonating for me now in my 30s. Um, and this just really does deal with something of a spiritual loneliness, you could say. What is it to have spent your entire life living for something only to be mocked and humiliated ultimately? And this is an experience of a film that just really makes me think in a way that very few others do, like much like Ingmar Bergman films would make me think. As far as just this is certainly Martin Scorsese getting straight into like Ingmar Bergman as territory because he had just made The Wolf of Wall Street. It seems like Scorsese kind of has two sides to him. He's more of that master of entertainment, which you see in like Goodfellas, Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, which are all great, perfectly made movies. But then you got more his like spiritual side, like Last Temptation of Christ. Taxi Driver is kind of somewhere in the middle of Raging Bull, but this is kind of a different phase of Scorsese altogether. This is honestly the I think this is where Scorsese's really in his element, like so. And it's a very underrated film, honestly. It's not really one a lot of people talk about, point at that as far as Martin Scorsese films nowadays, but it certainly splits people down the middle. I think a lot of it's just because it deals with a lot of like religious themes, and I think that a lot of people who just haven't really walked much of a religious or spiritual life isn't going to walk out of this feeling very much. I was literally silenced by this film because it literally kind of made me realize just how deeply spiritual I am and how challenging it would be to be like, what if someone stuck a gun to my face and told me I was going to have a slow, painful death for believing in Christianity, God, faith? And, it is a challenge because it's almost like, yes, I do believe in all this, but it's almost like I don't actually know 100% confidence how to define all of it. I mean, yes, I turn to the Bible, I turn to this stuff, but I'm still not going to go around claiming that this is the one and only answer. This is an answer that's helped me out. It's worked for me. But I simply don't know how it's going to work for other people. And that's where, I try to, strive for communicating in a universal language where we can talk about faith in a way that can make sense to someone who just will disagree with this material. It's almost like, well, I still want to, it would be better if I could still reach you somehow, but I mean, this is just a perfectly made film. I mean, I know I've heard a lot of criticisms about random things about this film I disagree with, like such as the CGI being a little too over the top. And yes, Scorsese is very much a modern kind of filmmaker. He's an unusual kind of classic director where he doesn't like, think it's my way or like how he actually gets with the times. Like he watches the time change and he actually is enthusiastic to get right on board with it. So there's a lot of like CGI of the island, and whatnot. But I feel like there's so much great cinematography here. I mean, I really love how the island is just such a character in itself, and just it's like an epic odyssey, just the downfall of having spirituality. And I think the bleakest part about it is just like growing up and having people who are very spiritually gifted people and godly people who I really admire, and it's like to see them in the face of defeat is horrible. And I think the thought of that actually really breaks my heart, because like I really knew people like this, so it's like, and I still feel like love for them. So I mean, for the way that they've left a godly impact on me, made me stronger in my faith with God. But it's like in this case, just imagine being right in the face of your leader is in the face of tears and just on his knees of the face of death, and it's like it's really a bleak picture. I don't think you have to be religious fully. You might have to kind of be a little open-minded, just to grasp just what it is to just live for something your entire life, only for it to be completely mocked and ridiculed. How just defeating that feels. That's the ultimate ego kill. It feels like. But that's the thing. The cinematography here is just really special. You got Thelma Shoemaker. I mean, that's a regular Scorsese collaboration, and she's always getting right on board with what he's doing. And it really just casts a spell. It's amazing scenery. Also reminds me a bit of like Robert Bresson in certain shots. It's just kind of the silent, literally, I know it almost seems like I'm making puns here, but literally just the silent nature of this film. It's just really trying to capture something that's very quietly just haunting. And you feel like this is a film that goes beyond like a Christian perspective. If you were religious and someone put a gun in your face and it's like, I'm not talking like a quick death. I feel like it would be easier to stand for faith if it was just like, okay, put a gun in my face, just shoot me. But it's hard still. But imagine like a slow, painful death of like days and weeks of torture. I mean, that's another level. So this is really a beautifully haunting film the entire way through. It kind of reminds me of how films like Apocalypse Now catch me. I mean, that's a different kind of film entirely, but perhaps it's the island setting and just sort of that, like, literally, it just kind of leaves me in a trance. Like, I walked out of this film, and I was with a group of people who didn't resonate with this film. So it was almost like I literally just wanted to be silent because I literally had to take this thing because it like literally is so powerful to me to just literally kind of get brutally tortured for just having to say something that disagrees with how I've lived my whole life. I mean, that is really a dilemma. So that's really challenging. This is like an eternal journey. I love Andrew Garfield in this film. And again, I've heard criticisms about his acting in this being like he seems too childish in a scenario, but I feel like that's the idea. Like it's literally a childish kind of, it seems like a child, he has like childlike wonder, towards everything. Naivete, you could say. And to just see that being shattered is just that much more heartbreaking. I feel like it could have been any other kind of character. It's really masterfully portrayed by Andrew Garfield. Adam Driver is wonderful in it too. Liam Neeson is like heartbreaking. And again, this isn't a film that's really like, it's not really going to make or break your, faith in things. It's just kind of a glimpse of just how harrowing it can be to just let your faith get into the hands of the wrong people. That's my ultimate paranoia. That's why I prefer to be, again, I know it seems like I'm being funny here, but silence about my faith and my perspectives because, I mean, obviously I want to spread this, but I prefer the universal language because it's so important that can I just talk to somebody who doesn't get this stuff at all? And actually, if you leave them to it, there can't be pointing fingers in my eyes. I can't point, and that's for some people. That's not for me. I cannot point fingers. I have to be completely open-minded and completely neutral to what the other person's seeing. And I'll try to walk it, with what I know and explain what I know rather than just, this is the answer. Just like I'm ready to die because this is the answer. Because there's just clearly thousands of perspectives out there. So it's just so intimidating to just say that there's one answer. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of violence. The violence here is terrible. I mean, it just leads to, as you watch it, just like, yeah, that's very defeating. You really feel like the violence here is just, it's like it's absurdly pointless. So like, all this just doesn't need to happen, but they're just in the wrong hands, in the wrong place, at the wrong time. I mean, Japan in the 16th century. I mean, that's a different world altogether. All kinds of just contradiction going on, but these guys are like literally willing to die for their faith. But then the characters we're following are ultimately challenged by all this because it's like, yeah, like literally, it feels just as bad as he's like, just, okay, I don't believe in God anymore because this is happening. That's what Liam Neeson's going through in a lot of ways. Yeah, and this is just, again, it reminds me of like how the film Taxi Driver is. And Scorsese would do this sometimes. Like After Hours has this feeling too, but it's like this feeling that there's just something very horrific in your surroundings, and you feel like the character instinctually wants to erupt into something violent, but rather in Taxi Driver that's what he does. But in this case, ego sacrifice comes into play. How about like what it is to just have that temptation, but just come to even more of a quiet and peaceful place because your naivete is being so shattered, and it's almost like he's just holding on for his dear life, not for anyone else but himself. And that's like the thing. It's like a survival instinct kicking in at this point, And I love how in the end he still carries this with him. I've even heard people say this is a cheesy ending. I think it's a wonderful ending because it's like he went through this 3-hour epic, and in the end, he still retained God and his faith. In the end, that's sort of what it's showing. No matter what he goes through, for the rest of his life. But yeah, this is just what it is to just have internal crisis and just be, it's really passionately made. I feel like what's really unique about this film too is it just doesn't even feel like it came out of the year 2016. It feels like you could have told me this came out in the 70s and I would have believed it because it literally reminds me of a lot of Japanese films in the 70s particularly. There literally was a Japanese film of this very same story. This is based off a novel, but came out in 1971, but I've heard this is easily superior. I'd like to check that one out too sometime. But this is really a great film. I mean, it's really unique, and it really does just feel like it is. Yeah, this is one of Martin Scorsese. This is perhaps my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. The most powerful and effective one, right next to the way Taxi Driver's been. But I think the film for Martin Scorsese, I can't wait to see now is just what he's going to do with Leonardo DiCaprio and Killers of the Flower Moon. The trailer just came out, and that's my most anticipated film right now. And for Paul Thomas Anderson says more about his project than Quentin Tarantino. Right now, it's going to be a 4-hour epic. That's Martin Scorsese. It's like he's been going since like literally the late '60s, and he still is just as great of a director as he ever was. It's genius. Man. He's so unique, so original. Just the fact he can make something like Wolf of Wall Street, the ultimate, like, it feels like this madhouse party for 3 hours. You know, that's a great movie. But honestly, I am pretty drained of rewatching that one. I think, okay, that one really has left its impact on me. I get it. Silence is a lot closer than I think the Scorsese I'm looking for. The more the spiritually challenged the priest of Martin Scorsese, because, you know, he was actually going to be a Catholic priest before he became a film director. And a lot of the film directors like him were really kind of like looking at their faith and assessing their faith. You know, often they were very, very much dark and tormented places. But I think Martin Scorsese is at a much more elderly perspective here. Again, it really does come off like an Ingmar Bergman, or like a lot of Japanese films. But, you know, that's what makes this different from most of the Martin Scorsese films. Most of them his characters are very ego-driven by something. But here, there's just no ego in the face of something that's evil beyond anything else. It's just, there's just no need for anything like that whatsoever. So that's Silence. This is really underrated. I highly recommend this film. I mean, you may not love it. This is it's not like love or hate. It's more like you're gonna really love what it's doing, or you're just gonna be neutral about it, indifferent about it, which is how a lot of people have talked about it feel. But I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's an honor masterpiece. At this point, I'm probably increasingly going to feeling like this is my favorite Scorsese film because it's so original, but in the way that it conveys it. So that's Silence. Highly recommend it.